That's right. Back here on the Love of the Star podcast presented by the On Time Experts. He's the Super Bowl champion, Bryan Broaddus. I'm Eric Chiafalo with the G-Bag Nation, and it's great to have you in. Let's preview these Giants Week 2, AT&T Stadium. We got ourselves a noon kick, and the Giants have plenty of problems, but we got to do some Cowboys housekeeping as well. Friendly reminder, the ontimeexperts.com is where you need to go to get the best AC service in the Metroplex, same day, or you don't pay policy for certain repairs. 100% satisfaction guaranteed, no excuses, no exceptions, transparent pricing, no surprise add-ons or hidden fees, locally trusted with years of experience serving the community. They're the best in the business. They take care of their customers at the highest level, and we just ask that you support the people that support this show. Broaddus, happy Thursday, brother. How are you?
Doing well, Eric. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. It's that time of year where the season, you're going to start to get into a little bit of a rhythm of what's going on, but with this little bit of the Thursday game and then having to wait 10 days to play again. But looking forward to it. Like I say, there's a rhythm that gets into this thing, and we're getting ready to start that here very quickly.
Yeah, that's right, man. We start being like the best athletes, just creatures of habit. Boom, boom,
Sure.
boom. Everything's rocking and rolling here. And we're looking forward to the Cowboys finally having a home game situation, taking on the Giants. We'll break this game down. But let's start with some things going on at the Star in Frisco. And we'll start with DaRon Bland.
Right.
Popped up on the injury report, foot, ankle.
Yeah.
What do we know about this, Broaddus, and how long could he be out?
Yeah, this is, talking to people in the organization, initially thought that maybe there was something to do with the foot that he had injured and then had come back with from the surgery, and then, it then re-aggravated it or re-injured it. But it appears it's the opposite foot from the one he had trouble with. Hurt it in practice on Monday. And so, yeah, they're dealing with that right now. The word is that he's going to be okay. He's probably out this week. We'll see what happens in following weeks. Todd Archer thinks it's going to be a couple of week injury. I did not get that indication initially, so we'll see how long Bland is going to be out. But that's a big blow for the Cowboys. But fortunately for them, you had Diggs play in 26 of the 62 snaps last week, which was right around 42% of those snaps. So he appears to be ready to go. So it's Elam, it's going to be Diggs, and now, likely Reddy Stewart will step in and play as the nickel in this contest against the Giants.
Okay. All right. So, do we get any clarification? Because I was wondering, foot, ankle, foot. Is it semantic?
It's a combination of a little both, from what I understand. It's a combination of both. It wasn't initially. It was told it was the ankle, and then the X-ray showed. Then later, it was a little bit more foot, ankle. So, it, like I said, the early indications were that he was going to be fine, just not for this week. We'll see how it shakes out for next week against the Bears, and then the following week against the Packers. But this is in a way, if you look at this game, it's a significant injury. Of course, yeah, you don't want anybody in your starters to get hurt, and especially in practice. They've had problems with their secondary before getting hurt in practice. You remember Diggs with the knee and stuff was a practice at one time, the first time around. So, that's unfortunate right there. But the Giants are a team that use a lot of spread formation. Matter of fact, they in 2024, just going back and looking at some of the metrics on it, they were the third highest users of spread formations, and they used it about 39% in week 1 against the Commanders. So, if you're going to play spread, you're going to need all hands on deck to be able to handle that with the coverage.
What is going on with the powers that be in the football universe that just desperately don't want us to be able to watch Diggs and Bland play together?
It's kind of wild, isn't it? Yeah, but yeah, it's just unfortunate. These practices and coaches like to practice. They don't, Mike McCarthy was kind of a big conserve, walk through, you still have injuries. But when you practice, occasionally guys are going to go for a ball. They're going to come down funny. They're going to get bumped. They're going to get run into. They're going to get shot in the ribs by accident. Someone's going to accidentally fall into somebody. I mean, it's just unfortunate. It's football, it's practice, but man, when it's not stuff game related, like on a Monday night or a Sunday afternoon, boy, that makes it even more tough to have to deal with practice injuries.
Yeah, it's definitely frustrating, but certainly good news that this should be a couple games, I guess, max. I mean, you'd love to have him back for that Green Bay game for sure, where it's going to be the Micah revenge game. We're going to need all hands on deck. The Packers look like one of the better teams in the league, certainly in the NFC. So you have Giants, Bears, Packers. That's how it's going to go here. Certainly going to have no Bland this weekend versus the Giants. So we'll get into that here in a moment. But I also wanted to bring up the news about Jadeveon Clowney, a guy that they brought in for a workout, certainly wanting to, at the very least, kick the tires on it. He leaves the Star yesterday without a deal done. Where do things stand with Clowney?
Yeah, that was exactly as you described it yesterday afternoon when word came down. I reached out to a couple of people in the organization, and they described it as kicking the tires. The question you now have to ask yourself is, what led them to bringing in Clowney for this visit? Are they just trying to help and see where their emergency board is? They're going to see the health of Clowney, really, training camp for him. Were they just looking to see how good a shape he's in, or do they feel like that they have a legitimate issue at their edge spot? Is there something they're not happy with Fowler? Is there something they're not happy with Donovan Ezeraku? Is Sam Williams not coming around like everybody kind of thought he was? Marshawn Nealon clearly was your best edge player against the Eagles, and he deserves to be the starter here against the Giants, honestly, if you want to put your best guys out there. But you wonder what led them to bringing him in. Again, there's, you at certain times of the year, you bring in guys just to make sure your emergency board is where it's at. You also look at the health of the player you're bringing in. Clowney's dealt with some, injuries in the past. You make sure those injuries are all okay, and then, go from there. But something, and I'm not going to use the word spooked, but something led them to bring Clowney in at a position where, you trade Micah Parsons and you're talking about, okay, we can manufacture pass rush. Was that it, or are they not happy with some of the elements, maybe a Fowler not playing the run particularly well in that game? We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, and after the Micah trade, it was clear that they were trying to sell to everybody that run defense was the most important thing here. And kudos to them. Outside of Jalen Hurts getting going there in that first half versus Philadelphia, the run defense did show up and they played. They played in a big way, containing Barkley, especially the interior of the defensive line. But I think it's fair to say that at times, like Dante Fowler, I really don't want him on the field when it's an obvious run down situation. Fowler should just be really a pass rush specialist at this point. Nealon's a stud. Sam Williams is kind of in the tweener area of, is he a great run defender? He's all right. But you have him as a pass rusher as well. You just can't have enough of these guys. And Clowney is, I mean, he has been, I know he hasn't met expectations as being a top pick kind of guy, but in terms of being a disruptor and being a really solid run defender, like that's his MO. And then he brings you some pass rush with some pressures, and his pass rush win rate was like top 20 amongst edges last year. So he can give you some of that. He doesn't rack it up from a sack standpoint. He never hit double digits, but in terms of just being a disruptive player, really good run defender, and can definitely give you some pass rush for a team that needs it. I know the pressure rate was high, but we talked about it the other day on the podcast. Jalen Hurts holds the ball more than any quarterback in the league.
Sure does. Yeah,
so
it
took forever to get home with the pass rush, and I'm sure we'll start to see more
Well,
blitzing because that started to work for him. But you just can't have enough of these guys. And the way White Cotton and Eberflus want to rotate defensive linemen, I loved the idea of them bringing him in. Maybe he's not in great shape. Maybe they feel like physically he can't hold up at this point, or maybe he just simply wants too much money. But on the surface, it felt like kind of a no-brainer idea to at least bring him in.
Yeah, you always want to have the opportunity to bring guys in and see where they're at. There's no harm in doing that. And, you could get an idea, again, the conditioning. This time of year, when you're bringing guys in, they're going to have to be ready to play. If you sign a guy, if you work a guy out on a Monday and get him signed up, he's got to be ready to practice on Wednesday. And he's got to probably be ready to play in the game on, Sunday. So there's there's sometimes there's players that come in and they're in poor physical condition. You get to week 6, week 7, and they're thinking, well, I'm not going to get a job. They don't stay after their conditioning. And so right now, maybe you're in a situation where you're telling Clowney, and I need to reach out and find out, hey, listen, was he asking for too much money? But initially the kick the tires line was given to me, and that was sometimes you'll get we're not doing good enough job at edge, or we're not doing a good enough job at tackle, or where, and they'll that'll if they bring in several guys at a position, then they're hunting something. The thing with Fowler is, I think if Fowler would have just played responsible football, assignment football, Fowler's a good player. It's then when he does things on his own, and when you don't play within the scheme, and that's any player. Well, that is any player, that if you don't play within the scheme, the group is going to suffer. And there were times where he and Donovan Ezeraku were not playing scheme, not doing what they were supposed to do, and that ultimately led to some of those big plays that Jalen Hurts was able to make with his legs.
All right, you're listening to the Love of the Star podcast. Love of the Star is an Audacy podcast. You can find it on the Audacy app or wherever you get your podcast. Love of the Star, presented by the On Time Experts. Check them out at theontimeexperts.com and click the Book Now button, backed by their Stay Cool guarantee. And they are really the best in the business. Pay less over time. They correctly diagnose your issue and fix it right the first time, same day, or you don't pay policy for certain repairs. 100% satisfaction guarantee. No excuses, no exception. They're the best in the business. Support the people that support this show. All right, Broadus, let's go ahead and take a look here as we preview the matchup. Week 2, Cowboys-Giants, AT&T Stadium. Let's look at the Giants offense here. It was a struggle bus. Looked like it was a struggle bus versus the Commanders.
Yeah, it really, really was. And, the biggest problems that the Giants had on offense was that how often that Russell Wilson was pressured in this game. The Giants really could not run the football. Their offensive line is a weak point for them. It's one of those that they've tried over the years to solidify it with free agent signings, with high draft picks. It just hasn't worked out. Andrew Thomas, one of their better offensive linemen, he was a first-round pick in the 2020 draft. He's out, and he was out last week. He didn't practice yesterday, being Wednesday. We'll see what happens on Thursday. But the talk is among the Giants people that I had a chance to visit with the last couple of days was that Andrew Thomas they're trying to ramp him up, much like what they did with CeeDee Lamb, trying to ramp him up in order to get him ready to play. But with him not practicing yesterday, that was a big blow according to them, for his chances to play. So that means that James Hudson has taken over at left tackle. John Runyon's still there, who they got from Green Bay at playing guard. The player that tends to get attacked the most and gives up the most pressure is the center, John Michael Schmitz. That's going to be an area where I think that if Matt Eberflus, as he's watching the tape, how do you match up Kenny Clark as much as you can? Keep John Michael Schmitz in a lot of one-on-one situations. Do not let him be uncovered. And what I mean uncovered is not have somebody on his nose. When he's uncovered, he's able to help. So that's something that John Michael Schmitz is very comfortable doing. If you get him one-on-one and make him have to block, it's a little bit more difficult for him. He does not handle power well. Jermaine Elamanior is the right tackle, and he's one of those guys that sets well, good body position. He's just very weak, and you could see him get walked back into. So both these offensive tackles have problems with power, and you got to be able to squeeze the pocket, which the Commanders were able to do. And then you attack the middle of the pocket. You attack John Michael Schmitz. So now you got the push. And this is where, Russell Wilson has the problems when he has to face pressure up the middle, because he's not a tall guy and he doesn't see over the defense all that well. So you don't see balls go down the middle of the field. It's either to the outside or down the sidelines. That's how he generally attacks you in these games.
Yeah. Okay. So the offensive line is definitely pretty patchwork, and you mentioned it, not having left tackle Andrew Thomas. That's part of the reason why if I was the Giants, I would still be rocking with Russell Wilson until I at least get my blindside protector Andrew Thomas back on the field before throwing the youngster, the rookie Jackson Dart in the mix there. It's only a matter of time now before Dart gets an opportunity, but until that offensive line gets some level of stabilization here, I wouldn't want to throw Dart out there either. So kind of sounds like the center is the weakest of the five, but really all five of them can be had.
Yeah, no, it absolutely. And when you start to talk about, if you're one of those guys and gals that believe in metrics, I could walk you through what happened last year with this crew, and it's kind of been a little bit of a carryover. I mentioned that John Michael Schmitz, he gave up 6.5 sacks last year, and his pressure rate for the position is right about 8%. So he ranked 35th out of 38 centers in the National Football League when it came to giving up sacks and pressures and things like that. So if you look across the board, it's a pretty significant number when you start to talk about pressures. John Runyon's right about ranked 24th in giving up pressures. I mentioned John Michael Schmitz. Schmitz is 35th out of 38 centers. You look at Elamanior, the right tackle. He was 28th out of 37 tackles for right tackles. So they have struggled. They just do not have. The Cowboys have been very, very, very fortunate. Just with the early indications are of way that Booker played, Smith played, Beebe played. Those three inside guys were really, really, really good, I felt like, against the Eagles last week. And then you got a little bit of a bump from Tyler Guyton, and Steele is kind of like who Steele is, but you do not have liabilities like the Giants have across their offensive line.
And when it comes to running the ball, one of the stats that I saw was 47% of the Giants runs to running backs versus the Commanders in week 1. 47% of them went for no gain.
Yeah. So they just do not get any pressure. They just do not. Not pressure, but they don't get any push. And it's very, very hard. They run these combo schemes where they get much like the Cowboys, the power gap, where they get hip to hip, and they just don't get up on second level, and then they don't get push on double teams. Commanders did a really, really nice job of making sure that with Frankie Louvu and the way that they attack that, with the way they attack, the Commanders have got a good front, and the way that they attacked put the Giants in a lot of bad situations.
So is it, how much are they going with Tyrone Tracy? I know Scadaboo, the rookie, got in the mix a little bit. He's just a firecracker, man. That dude he's got no care for his own body. Physical as all hell, but he couldn't really get much going either. It's like,
Tracy,
how do they divide that?
Yeah, my just a gut feeling, they were very similar to what the Cowboys dealt with like the last couple of years, where at the line of scrimmage, contact, no gain. Behind the line of scrimmage, contact, -2. At least through this first week of the season. I have a feeling Eric, that we're going to see more Cam Scattaboo in this. They need, it might not matter. It might not matter because they just don't secure people. They just don't secure the front as well as they need to. But I think Cam Scattaboo can make people miss. I think Tracy's a good player. Don't get me wrong. I think he catches the ball well. He's got some vision to make cuts and stuff. But it wouldn't surprise me. They got Devin Singletary as the backup, but I wouldn't be surprised to see them try to do a little bit more running the football and putting Cam Scattaboo back in there. In this game against the Commanders, he was used as a pass receiver. They flexed him out to the right side and threw him a ball, and he could be tough in the open field one-on-one to have to bring down because of the physicality. And then they handed him the ball, and it was behind the line of scrimmage, and it was a gain of -2, because he got hit. But he does have power. He does show the ability to make some people miss. Wouldn't be surprised if he gets a little bit more burn than what Devin Singletary is going to get this week.
Physical player, and we definitely saw it. Arizona State, he's a guy that can catch the ball pretty well.
Can't catch it for sure.
But if the offensive line is as useless as they were last week, it's just going to be tough to really get much going.
Right.
Sounds like a good opportunity for the linebackers to take a step in the right direction this week.
They weren't very good. They weren't very good against the Eagles. Got better after the weather delay, but they started the game pretty poorly. I wouldn't be surprised if we see more Maris Leofow in this game and see if they could get that thing going a little bit with some sideline to sideline play.
Yeah, I think we're all here for a little bit more Maris Leofow for sure. He was popping up on special teams. I mean, physical player brings an element of just energy and spunk to the defense right now, and I think we all want to see a little bit more Maris. But when it comes to, so you're not going to have Bland. They have Malik Neighbors. That's the headliner for their wide receiver group. How do you go about stopping the receivers that they have, and specifically the plan for Malik Neighbors? Would you want to travel digs with them, just double them every time? Like, how do you approach it?
Yeah, I'm interested to see how much man coverage they actually play in this game. Is it going to be, are they going to say, okay, they're not good enough to protect, and we're just going to rush 4 and then make Russell Wilson have to read the field? That's what they did against Hurts. What's interesting about Neighbors, and maybe this metric will flip in the game, where they were targeting Neighbors in this game against the Commanders that were on early downs. On third down, they weren't. So it's funny how, if you just look at numbers again, the metrics will tell you 36% on early down for targets, and then only 23% on third downs. What they were using on third downs is they were trying to throw the ball to Wan'Dale Robinson, and the ball wasn't going up the field; it was going to the sidelines. They were using some picks, some rubs, third down plays. They were trying to kind of create some space for their receivers with these rubs and picks that I mentioned, but the ball wasn't going down the field. Now, okay, if Elam's playing in this game, if he's one of the starters, they did a really good job. The one big play, the big chunk play that the Eagles had, was they caught Elam in coverage, and they ran a route. They ran Smith through the middle of the defense, which held Hooker in place. Now, you ask, well, okay, well, how do you cover Neighbors? It's not going to be, I don't think there's going to be traveling in this game. I think if there's traveling, it's going to be I think the Giants are the traveling team. They tend to like to, Paulson Adobo is the traveler, and he was with Terry McLaurin last week. So, they're going to have to pick it out, but I don't think the Cowboys are going to travel, but they've got to be careful that the Giants have got a couple of guys that can make plays down the field. Of course, Neighbors can make plays. You look at Jalen Hyatt as a guy coming out of Tennessee, was a vertical player. So, if you got Jahad Dotson making plays in a game, you got to be careful of somebody else from the Giants making some plays and taking some vertical shots.
Okay. Well, anything else we need to know from a Giants offense standpoint before we take a look at the defense?
Yeah, I think that, to me, it's really you have to be very, very mindful too, like I said, of Russell Wilson running with the ball, and
Mm.
and not maybe to the level of what we saw with Hurts last week,
Mm-hmm.
but to the level of if the pocket collapses, he is more likely to go through the center of the pocket than he is around the edges. So just be very, very mindful of, if you're watching the game and, they saw the Cowboys struggle with gap integrity, lane integrity. If Russell Wilson, he has an ability to drop back, plant, and if it's not there, he will get really, really small and he'll push forward and he'll find a way to get through a gap. And then the next thing you know, he's running in your secondary. It's going to be about, if you get bodies back there to him, you need to get bodies on him. He's doing a little bit more of getting to the ground quicker than he had in the past. But if you let him kind of squirt through the middle of the pocket, he's going to pick up a first down running the football.
Okay, yeah, he was definitely running for his life quite a bit.
Yeah.
And he'll run backwards and try and go kind of just like schoolyard football on you a little bit, running for his life these days. But yeah, if you get that contained, they can't run the ball with their running backs. And outside of Malik Neighbors, nobody really scares you. So it should be a good opportunity. It is a bummer not having Bland. I mean, it is, but this should be a good opportunity. Hopefully the Cowboys carrying that defensive momentum after the rain delay in Philadelphia and get this thing going a little bit more. And that run defense should be out in full force once again. All right, let's take a look at the Giants defense. You're listening to the Love of the Star podcast. Love of the Star is an Audacy podcast. You can find it on the Audacy app or wherever you get your podcasts. And we are proudly presented by the On Time Experts, the official AC heating and plumbing partner for the Dallas Cowboys as well. Check them out at the ontimeexperts.com. Support the people that support this show. All right, so Giants defense. What do we need to know about these guys? Of course, they have another man beast in the middle of the defensive line, Jalen Carter-esque. We didn't have to worry about Carter last week in Philadelphia. I don't see Dexter Lawrence spitting on Dak Prescott before the game. So that'll be a nice real test for the rookie Tyler Booker.
Yeah, this defense is unique in the way that their front has really, really talented players. Yeah, and Kayvon Thibodeau is kind of starting to come into his own. They use him on both sides as a pass rusher. They stand him up as an off-ball linebacker, kind of hunting some matchups, much like we saw in the past from, say, what Micah Parsons used to do for the Cowboys. Brian Burns is a veteran player. He is a really an interesting guy. He also just stands up, plays behind the line of scrimmage, plays both left and right side. He is a guy that can create pressures. If you look at edge rushers and percentages and stuff like that, he was in the top 15 last year when it came to pressure rates and stuff like that. He had 8.5 sacks as well. So that's a guy that's going to he's a number 0. And he'll play left and right, much like with Thibodeau, left and right. They kind of mix things up. They drafted rookie Abdul Carter out of Penn State. They had 3 pressures in the game last week in some limited work. He had 2 really quick pressures, and I think he rushed the pass. I think it was 25 times is what they had him in that game. And most of his snaps come on third down. And what they'll do is they will put Thibodeau and Carter on the same side. They will put Carter like as a defensive tackle, and then they will put Thibodeau outside of him as an edge is what they'll do. So he's a very explosive player. He's long, he's rangy. You don't see a whole lot of power right now from him. But he is a guy when it comes to rushing the passer. You've seen him at Penn State make plays, playoff blocks, and then get to the quarterback. He's got that kind of ability. So when you start to talk about this Giant front, that's what it is. It's Thibodeau, it's Burns, it's Carter, and it's Dexter Lawrence. Those are the main guys you're going to have to worry about in this game. And then in the secondary, they kind of mix it up a little bit. But with this Paulson Adobo, he is the one guy and they've seen Adobo play. He played in New Orleans last year, and did some coverage stuff. But he's the guy that will travel with. And I mentioned he traveled with Terry McLaurin. I'll be interested to see if Shane Bowen, the defensive coordinator, does some traveling. Does he pick a guy? Does he travel with CeeDee Lamb? Does he travel with George Pickens? These are the things. The funny thing too is, Eric, and just kind of going through defense and metrics and stuff like that, I just try and use this to supplement my film, which I find interesting, is that Lamb is not as productive in off coverage. Lamb is a more productive player. Lamb is one of the his numbers really, really, really dip when you play off coverage against him. And that's kind of surprising. You would think that with separation, it's when he plays man coverage. So the Giants have to think about if Adobo is walking with, if he's going to travel with Lamb, that might mean a lot of man coverage, which kind of plays into the wheelhouse of Lamb, because he is a very good receiver when it comes to dealing with that. But you play zone or off coverage against him, his numbers go remarkably, they go down. George Pickens is the opposite of that. His numbers tend to, when you play off coverage against him, his numbers yard per catch tends to go up. So it's kind of a unique balance when you really kind of dive into why one has success and why the other doesn't.
Interesting. So, I mean, going back and watching that game versus the Commanders, it felt like the Giants defense really started to slip when they lost their starting linebacker, Micah McFadden.
Yeah, he got hurt.
Game. He got hurt. They put in, I think, Muasau, I think is how you say his last name. And man, they couldn't stop the run, and they give up like over 200 yards on the ground. And then even in the passing game, when McFadden went out, all of a sudden it was like the coverage aspect to the linebacker play for the Giants just completely fell apart, and all the over the middle, the dig routes and the, just not being able to get to the hook area as well. Things really opened up in the passing game for Jaden Daniels and the Commanders. McFadden is going to be out for a considerable amount of time, so it's going to be Muasau who's still playing that linebacker spot for the Giants. That feels like a guy that you can absolutely take advantage of, not only with running the football because they couldn't stop the run, but also in the passing game and getting behind him. He just doesn't get the depth. He doesn't get the width that he needs to in coverage. And bam, Jaden Daniels was taking advantage of that.
Yeah, they had a lot of opening, as you mentioned, inside there when throwing the football. And that was a big loss for them, because McFadden was one of those guys that with that front, he's able to run and get to the football. And you saw the play, he got injured. It looked like it was arm or shoulder. You could tell that it was a problem. And then, as you mentioned, Muasau came in and it just weren't the same team. And it's like he just didn't have the feel for where he needed to be at certain points. It's a linebacking crew that's I feel like that is fortunate that they have the type of players in front of them, but losing McFadden, and again, I'll have to circle back with my Giants guy and see exactly, what that situation is and his availability for this week.
Yeah, I mean, just from doing a little bit of research on it, I think he's going to be out for a bit. So,
okay, was it the shoulder or the arm? On the film,
I think it was the shoulder.
Okay,
I think it was the shoulder that got
it.
Him.
Looked like it. It looked like it on tape. That's what happened. So I had not heard if he was. So if he's going to be out for a while, that's a big loss for them.
No doubt. Okay, so one of the things that I know you always like to do, find the scrub. Who do you want to attack here on the Giants defense?
Yeah, we kind of talked about the linebacker situation, but really, they like to kind of mix and match their corners, at least in this game. Drew Phillips is the nickel. He's a pretty decent little player when you watch him. I mentioned about Adobo, and I feel like he's a guy that plays. He's a solid player. Deonte Banks. I was trying to find him on the tape. It looked like that Cordell Flott. If he's the guy to me that is the one that if you find number 28 on the field, he is the one that tends to give up the most plays. He doesn't play as well in coverage. He has trouble when staying in connected in routes. He did have one play where I noticed that he did knock a pass down. I drove on a ball. But generally, when you run at him, you can run by him. And generally, when you run him inside, he has a hard time keeping up. He's just not a very bursty player. And so I would, if 28 is on the field for some of these snaps, like I say, need to figure out what the situation is with Banks. But Phillips looks like a decent player. Adobo is a decent player, but the one Flott, number 28, was the one that was really struggling in this football game, and he's struggled in the past as well.
Okay, fantastic. Well, that's exciting. I'm looking forward to this game. Hopefully, this is. I think I'm just going to go with the mantra. This is just a handle business game, Broadus. We were trying to shock the world versus Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't quite shock the world, but we surprised them a little bit.
Sure.
That's for sure. But now this week with the Giants in town and just the status of their football team, let's just go handle business. I did want to mention our old buddy Chauncey Golston is also a part of that defensive line crew.
Yeah.
Is he not?
Yeah, he plays some edge, and he's kind of a rotational player. What they'll do is when they want to give one of these guys a rest, like if they give Thibodeau a rest or give Burns a rest, then they put Chauncey Golston. They got him playing more end than they do tackle.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we saw him do a little bit of both here in Dallas.
Oh, really? They're playing like as an outside linebacker is really what they've got him playing as, like a hand down outside linebacker. Yeah.
How about that? All right. Well, shout out to our guy Starlin at Thundercat254 on Twitter. He was the one who was really asking about taking advantage of the scrubs this week. So with the Giants offense, it looks like there's going to be plenty of opportunities on that offensive line.
Yeah, the offensive line. Yeah, it's going to be a problem for them. Yeah.
Beautiful. All right. Well, thank you very much, Broadus. You're the man. It's the Love of the Star podcast presented by the On Time Experts. And let's go get a victory, come back 1-1, and feel fantastic. We'll be back very soon. Thank you.
Thank you, man.